Hey, what's up, everybody? We are back, and welcome to episode 83 of the Super Deformed Gamescast. As always, I am one of your hosts, John, aka at Mr. Negative on Twitter. I have many other names as well. Some of them are not as flattering as others. We won't get into that. But as you can see, it's a much smaller podcast tonight than the fucking dumpster clusterfuck that was last week with like
How many did we have? Do you remember?
it was like 11 fucking people, and two of them were Mike Huber and
Close to 10, probably. It was 8 or 9.
yeah,
at
I
least
mean
nine.
it was ridiculous. Yeah, it was
It was fine,
It was a
guys.
hell of a lot of fun. I enjoyed last week's episode a
Yeah,
lot.
I did too.
it was you know what? It was actually it went a lot smoother considering the volume of people that we had that I ever could have guessed. Like I think everybody did a great job not talking over each other, and Huber and Quentin were just a fucking blast to have on. They always are. But tonight we've got another guest, and making his monthly recurring appearance on the podcast, we have Matt Piscatella, who, if you are on GAF or if you follow him on Twitter, you know that he is an NPD analyst and knows quite a bit about the industry. Very sharp guy, very cool guy. If you're not following him on Twitter, you need to be if you are at all interested in sales and NPD numbers and kind of the meaning behind the numbers and generally where the industry is trending. So Matt, dude, as always, man, it's just a real pleasure to have you on, man. We like having you on.
Oh, that's awesome. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me again. This is cool.
Yeah, thanks, dude.
All right, so we've got a pretty cool list of topics tonight. Obviously, other than the MPDs, I figured we would talk about our experiences with Splatoon 2, because I think most of us have played it at this point. I wanted to maybe touch on Pyre a little bit, because I've dumped about 5 hours into that so far today, and I wanted to give my thoughts on it. And I thought a fun topic would be talking about games that we played through and just decided either right in the middle or near the very end, I'm done. I can't fucking do this anymore.
I know. I certainly know a few.
Yeah, and people already. I shouted that out on in the DMs, and Jay already called me on what he knows mine is going to be. But we'll get into that later. But we'll go ahead and start with the MPDs. Before we have Matt give us the rundown, I just want to I want to say that there was a very cool article that we're going to be talking about on GamesIndustry.biz that was written by James Brightman, and it's about how digital sales aren't cannibalizing retail, which in 2017, a really good topic and something that is really relevant to me because of my experiences buying games last gen compared to this gen. But we'll get into that. So Matt, you wanna kind of break down what June looked like on the MPDs this month?
Cool. Yeah. So actually, June was a really interesting month. So hardware sales were actually up 27% in terms of the revenues, right? And so that's a really nice year-on-year jump. And for the year, we're up about 19 points, and that's all because of Switch. So you're hearing a lot out there about PS4 unit sales being up, and they are. PS4 is doing exceptionally well. However, on a spend perspective, it's basically flat. So the growth we're seeing is all because of the Switch. And if you've been following what's been going on with Nintendo's earnings calls or some of the stuff going on from the analyst community, you know that the analysts are very optimistic on Nintendo right now. A lot of it's because of Switch, and a lot of it's because of some other initiatives. So the Switch has had a great impact on hardware. The software side, it's a little bit more of a mixed bag. Portable software is off pretty big. So the 3DS and Vita are, off over 30 points.
Oh, poor Vita.
Portable's had a real rough go.
Vita Island is sank well.
Yeah, Portable's had a rough go, and consoles been doing fairly well. So PS4 software sales are great, driven by the exclusives. Switch is having a really nice go. And then on the accessory side, Switch accessories are doing great. PS4 and X1 controllers are doing great. But we have the interactive gaming toys off really big year on year, and so that's kind of dragging down. So overall, spend's up. The market's up 2% on the year, which is great. And in terms of like physical sales, and yeah, digital, it's even better. So overall, it's a pretty good month.
So when you're talking, you're referring to that last bit, talking about toys. You're referring to like toys to life, like Skylanders and Amiibo and shit like that, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That's weird because like is there any like breakdown of the sales? Because I know Skylanders is basically dead at this point. Just like the Disney Infinity stuff.
Dead.
Yeah, it's all done. So does that mostly encompass the amiibo, or is there like a breakdown between what amiibo sales are doing versus what Skylander sales are doing?
Yeah, so, well, Skylanders and Infinity are obviously off pretty big because they've been taking the year off. Dimensions is chugging along. And Amiibo, I mean, the characters around Zelda are doing fantastic. All the stuff that has playable content around them are doing very well. But, you know, you just have a market that's coming off some really hot pricing and hot demand. And so you're going to have a decline even if some products are doing pretty well. So just a case of a little bit of a market contraction, but all signs point to Nintendo continuing to make Amiibo and to make them a key part of the Switch and what the Switch offering is. And so I wouldn't assume those are going away. The other brands are kind of, you know, we're going to have to see what happens.
So here's something that's interesting, and I kind of wanted to get a group discussion going on here. So it's no secret, especially if you're on GAF or Twitter, that the numbers are out there. We generally don't get hardware numbers anymore, but for whatever reason they leaked this month and the numbers are out there. This was the I think, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but the highest performing June for PS4 since release. Essentially.
Thanks to Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy. Yeah, Jesus Christ. I hope you guys are ready for a new Crash Bandicoot game.
I guess.
Oh, guys, I have to make a quick announcement.
Oh God, what?
We hit 800 subscribers.
Yeah, there we go. That's what I'm talking about, dude. Right here, too. That's awesome. Whoever subscribed, we appreciate that shit.
I mean, we're talking about numbers, so we might as well bring that up right now.
I know, right, dude? The march to 1,000 continues.
Our latest subscriber was Bandicoot 97. So
thank you. Crash Bandicoot's just doing fucking crazy numbers.
Are you serious?
I made that shit up. I don't know.
Okay. Damn it, Jeff. Damn it.
I wish.
Shouldn't have said that.
If only.
But no, dude, thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, Crash Bandicoot sales are fucking nuts. I hope you guys are ready for the next game in the series, because it is absolutely happening now.
A question about that: do we honestly think a new Crash would be as well received? Because these were the remakes of the Naughty Dog trilogy.
It certainly wouldn't be any good because it's Crash Bandicoot.
I was thinking about that earlier. I got two thoughts, if you don't mind, Matt. The one is, I think this one was so well received because, first of all, it's 3 games, and second of all, it's $40. So if you put out a new Crash Bandicoot, a very straightforward platformer in the same style, I don't know how you pack that with enough content to justify $60 without doing some really weird stuff that might not work.
That's the thing Sony's been really good at, and you can look at the Ratchet and Clank remake as well. They've been reviving and bringing back these franchises, but selling them at a budget price, and it's a lot more palatable for people to jump in and try it and pick it up if it's at the $39.99 price point instead of $60. And I think it's really smart that they keep putting these games out at $40 instead of full price.
Yeah, I guarantee you though, Matt. You tell me what you think, man. That next Crash Bandicoot game that you know is coming out, that's gonna be a full price release. After, I mean, looking at sales of what.
Well, the question is who makes it. If it's Activision, it's full price. But if it's Activision, I don't think they have interest in making that kind of game. Like, what does Activision make? It's Call of Duty.
Put the Skylanders team on it. They're not doing anything anymore.
Ooh, that's cold. That's fucking
the
cold.
Skylanders team is making Call of Duty DLC. What are you talking about?
But they have Crash and Skylanders, so you're good.
I don't
know. They're probably just like remaking Spyro the Dragon right now.
Yo, Spyro sucks. No.
Oh.
Dude, Spyro fucking rocks.
No.
I don't know.
You have okay. You know what? You know what? After the shit you pulled last week, you know that is the me saying Spyro sucks is nothing. That's
don't at
nothing.
me. Don't at me.
So, moving it back to console talk real quick. The PS4 sold incredibly well in June, thanks in part, I think, to Crash Bandicoot, and also probably to that incredibly gaudy golden PS4 that I can't believe anybody would actually want in their home.
I would want. I don't even care.
Oh, dude, I think it's garish and it's gaudy, and I don't see the appeal.
I just want one in the bathroom with my plasma TV and
I need to install
cold toilet paper.
That's the fucking Donald. That's the PS4 Trump edition right there. And then you had the Switch, which was in second place, and I think we can all agree that if the Switch was not having the severe production issues it is having, it would probably have charted much higher. And I want to point out that with Nintendo releasing their earnings call, and you've got like 4.7 million Switches that have been shipped, and I would imagine that almost all of those or virtually all of them are sold, most likely. Matt was the guy. Most people predicted 5 million Switches sold by the end of the year, right? And they were like, okay, great, it's gonna be great. Matt was the guy who was a lot more bullish than everybody else, and he was vindicated. And now, Matt, you said on Twitter the other day that you said that you were not feeling, you felt like you weren't bullish enough, actually.
Yeah, well, actually, Dan Ahmad was the guy who was really bullish, and he was just kind of crazy, and he might end up being the closest out of anybody. But yeah, I was probably second in line in terms of the bullishness, and I'm still bringing my number up from what it was. So it's pretty remarkable what they've been able to accomplish and what they've been able to achieve, and they're bringing in people that weren't buying consoles in recent years. And you can see that because we're not seeing any big negative hits on either the PS4 or Xbox One because of Switch success. Like, these are people who are new to the market, for as far as I can tell, and it's incremental to where we were. And they're offering games that appeal to a slice of the market that was being ignored for the last few years. So, Nintendo's come out and said they're going to ship 10 million worldwide in the first calendar year. Michael Pachter and some others have assumed that they're going to ship more than that and have raised their numbers up to that level. I'm still assuming they're going to ship 10 million this year because those chips are really hard to get, and I'm not hearing that those are getting any easier to find. But if they ship more than that, they'll sell them, man. It's been a huge success. And
aren't there alternate ways of getting those chips, though, Matt? I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry. I wanted to ask, aren't there alternate methods of getting their hands on those chips, though?
Yeah, it's every time you talk to anyone about it, either in the game space or in the hardware space, there's always a lot of, well, there are ways around it, or, this could happen or that could happen. So I don't know what's real and what's not when it comes to that right now. So Nintendo's sticking to the 10 million ship worldwide year one number, and I'm going to believe them for now. But if they can ship more, then they'll sell them.
I could not have predicted the Switch would take off the way it did. Like, I figured it would do well. But I did not see this coming at all, and I am so happy and so glad to have a resurgent Nintendo. And I get that this is year one, Matt, and you've mentioned this before. I get that this is year one, and year two is going to be more important because that's when the system will live or die by the games. Because I don't think anybody here can say that this thing has hit a Wii level of cultural interest. It's performing phenomenally, and I think it's going to be a success. I think it's going to do fine. But I also, from talking to you and from talking to the rest of the guys on the podcast and other people throughout the industry, I don't feel like this has hit the level of a cultural phenomenon like the Wii, and it probably won't because it doesn't really cater to that audience anymore. Would not just Matt, but would all you guys agree with that, or do you think I'm off target?
I think you're right. I think it's going to, it's hitting this new market. It's also it's achieved its position, I believe, as the premier secondary console choice. Where an Xbox or PlayStation, if they need a second system, they're looking.
Okay, all right. No, I see what you're saying. Okay, I gotcha.
But you're not getting the reports that the Wii had. Like, the Wii hit that cultural zeitgeist where you were hearing about grandmas in nursing homes and all these places buying the Wii. And I think it's because the Switch lacks that. I mean, Zelda's a huge game for us, but nothing is touching on that level of Wii Sports.
It's not Wii Sports, yeah. Wii Sports was a one-of-a-kind thing.
With that universal feel.
Well, you know what's funny is that, like, I don't understand why they didn't just make a successor to Wii Sports for the Switch as opposed to 1-2 Switch, because Fitterman and Maddie and I played it at PAX East when we were in the hotel, and it was offensively bad. Like, it's just not a good game, and I hope I never have to watch Matt and Matt
jerk
off motion in front of each other. I don't ever want to see it.
Here's just a reminder, guys. For every store that doesn't have a Switch in stock, there's 20 copies of 1-2 Switch.
The thing about 1-2 Switch was we had this whole grand idea that we would stream ourselves playing it while drinking, and even if we had turned it into a drinking game, the appeal of 1-2 Switch was so short-lived, we would have not even felt a buzz.
I don't know, man. Watching the way you guys were enjoying going at those Joy-Cons, I feel like it's a good thing you weren't drinking because, man, it was. I didn't want you guys to just like stare off into each other's eyes while you're, in a drunken stupor playing with the Joy-Cons.
That's what happened after you fell asleep.
I was just lounging on the bed, taking it all in. But you know what's weird, guys, and I just want to say this, and then we'll move on with the sales talk. It's interesting talking about 1-2 Switch. Is I have not, that game was designed around the haptic feedback of the Joy-Con and the motion controls and the HD Rumble, which is a stupid fucking game for anything. But I have not. As far as I know, that is really the only game that actually takes advantage of that.
So is it essentially like the Link's crossbow training
I guess
for the
so.
Switch?
I mean, because and here's the thing, I don't see them capitalizing or taking it any further than 1-2 Switch, which is weird. But I feel like if they were going to, we'd know it by now. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, maybe we'll find out next year.
I'd love to see like a nice like Mario Party game or like a game I could enjoy with my family or.
I would definitely enjoy a new Mario Party, but we all know that now.
We unfortunately, yes, we do.
It's kind of weird because I feel like Nintendo keeps doing this, and outside of the Wii, everything is kind of petered out. Like the Wii U, they made such a big deal about the gamepad and how innovative it was, but even in their own games, they kind of just stopped using it. Like Breath of the Wild, I think all it says on the Wii U gamepad is, please look at your TV. Like, it doesn't even have your map or inventory. Like,
hold on. On the Wii U, it doesn't have the Shake-a-Slate on the gamepad?
No.
That's weird. Oh, that's really strange. I didn't know that.
Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I played it on my Wii U, and I'm pretty sure it just said, look at the TV. Like, there was nothing. And they're like
weird.
They're 3DS games. They just kind of stopped. Some of the new ones don't have any 3D at all. And it's just, I don't know. It feels like they introduce these things and kind of go half in, and I get third-party developers maybe aren't going to utilize it, but even Nintendo themselves, just since the Wii, kind of haven't seemed to really embrace what they build their consoles on.
So Nintendo basically just was like, hey, use the Wii U Pro Controller to play this, because that's a hell of a better controller than the gamepad was.
Oh, man, yeah. I couldn't stand the gamepad, but it's another story.
So, I wanted to ask this real quick, and we'll move on to the Xbox in regards to the Nintendo Switch. And this is a question for not just Matt, but for everybody. Nintendo has projected a 10 million, a goal of 10 million Switches for the end of the fiscal year. And I don't know whether or not hey, Maddie in chat, what's up, man? I don't know whether or not they specified shipped or sold. Probably shipped, I would guess.
Shipped.
Okay, shipped. But so based on what we're seeing now, do you guys think that that's a number that they can hit? I would imagine probably. I mean, undoubtedly, yeah, right?
Yeah, I mean, you don't put that number out there unless you're fairly confident, because that's the number that the investment community is going to hold you to. So you have to feel good about that number before you throw it out there.
I think what's going to be really key is to see whether or not Nintendo will be able to ramp up production for the holidays. And I will say, this is anecdotal, but just out of curiosity, I drove to my local Best Buy. This is when Splatoon 2 released this past Friday. But I drove to my local Best Buy. I drove to my local Target and Walmart. And I actually, for the first time, I saw Switches in the wild at every single one of these places. And not just a few. There was maybe 15 or 20 that I saw sitting behind the counter at Best Buy. And it was already clear that a good chunk of them had been there and were being sold. But it was interesting to see that, Nintendo, apparently we had all theorized that Nintendo was holding stock for the Splatoon 2 release, and I would imagine that it's probably true. So it'll be interesting to see what the Switch does for sales in July. I'm really interested in August's NPD to be, or July's NPD to be quite honest with you. I think it's going to be very, very telling.
Yeah, the strategy always has been to support software launches with hardware. And I think what you're going to see is around launch of Odyssey, Switches are going to be much more plentiful on shelf. I mean, Nintendo knows that mom is how they're going to break into that Wii-type stratosphere of sales, that families are going to be driving it. The core is wonderful and has been there for Nintendo, and of course they want to take care of the core. But mom and family are going to take them over the top, and a game like Odyssey is going to have a full. I'm assuming a real strong batch of hardware to come out for October and the holiday, and that's where I think you're going to see the majority of the shipments hit. And plus, keep in mind that it usually takes about 6 months to ramp production and get things on boats and move them across the world. And 6 months or 6 months behind October is April, when they knew that they had something special. So all that kind of lines up for me that way.
So I said that that was my last Switch question, but I lied. I got one more for you guys. Do you think if they can ramp up, and this is my last one, I promise.
Actually, I think I know what you're about to ask, and I was about to ask the same one.
So all right. So let's see if we're on the same page. I was going to ask if you guys think that Nintendo, provided they can keep up stock, can they win November? Again, when the Scorpio launches and when you got Call of Duty, is it possible for them to win the holiday season?
I think they can win October if they pump out enough systems.
Yeah, I don't think they win November. I think they get second or third in November.
I don't know, man. Mario is a
Call of Duty and when does Destiny come out?
Destiny comes out September.
Holy shit! Well, I mean, Call of Duty is still a big time.
There's going to be a lot of people that are getting a PS4, Xbox One in the holidays and get Destiny with it, and Battlefront 2. Like, there's some big mainstream games coming out.
I think Switch takes October because of the Mario launch.
Undoubtedly.
Because, well, unfortunately, by the way I envision, and Matt, please tell me if I'm off base here, the bulk of the systems would be made available at around the launch of Odyssey, and then probably again around Black Friday.
Yeah.
Because the bulk would be at the October launch of Odyssey, that'll be its best chance to just blow everyone out of the water, because Odyssey is the biggest probably holiday exclusive any of the big three have.
Of course.
Third parties not accounting, but
if the Switch was cheaper, I would be much higher on its chances of outselling the other two.
Yeah, but you know, there's gonna be some big price drops, Jeff.
I'm sure.
For Nintendo?
No. I want to clear. No, not for Nintendo. I was backing your point up. The Xbox.
Yeah, like I mean, the PS4 and Xbox One, they're gonna have their bundles again. They're gonna be dirt cheap
for November. But that's why I'm not predicting the Switch win for November. I'm predicting it for October, when the other two aren't nearly as aggressive, coupled with the launch of Odyssey.
I don't know, man.
In November, when you have the Black Friday sales and all the big third-party launches like Call of Duty and Battlefront, that's when you see the other two blow out.
I don't know.
That's my prediction.
I say Switch takes November, and if provided Nintendo can keep the production up, and that's a big if. I mean, simply because the fucking thing launched March 3rd. It launched in March, and it sold almost 1 million units. This is a system that is, I would say, has a much higher, and you guys, especially Matt, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I see a lot more interest in the Switch than I do the PS4 or the Xbox One from consumers. And I think that with Mario coming out on October 27th, that's kind of the perfect lead in into the holiday season. That's the game that is the game that everybody's going to want. And you're going to have Pokken Tournament. You're going to have. I think. Yeah,
I don't see them moving the needle very much.
I don't know, man. I mean, dude, people are hungry for Pokemon, man. I mean, they really are. And now you can fucking take a game like Pokken Tournament, anywhere. I will say this:
like they've already got ARMS and Splatoon for that kind of like competitive.
Look, Pokken Tournament will undoubtedly be a million seller. No one's saying it's going to flop. I just don't think it's going to be a system seller on the same level that these other games have been so far.
I want to address something that Jesse in chat said real quick. He said Mario comes out on Wolfenstein Day. Ain't nobody got time for that. I love Wolfenstein. I'm going to be getting Odyssey and Wolfenstein. Yeah, I'm going to be getting a Wolfenstein and Odyssey, but I'm poor BJ. BJ's going to get fucking murdered. And it's not going to be the Nazis that kill him. It's going to be the Italians that take BJ down.
I mean, I know I'm buying Wolfenstein. But...
Yeah, I'm definitely buying Wolfenstein.
I'm buying it too, but I don't like BJ's chances against. But then again, you're talking to two completely different audiences, so who knows? Maybe it'll be fine.
Different
Yeah,
consoles.
so to touch on that, the Switch one more time, real quick. So I'd agree. I think the Switch is going to have a big hardware push around Odyssey. It'll have another big hardware push around Black Friday. Are they going to have enough units to take November? That's questionable. I don't think so. We also don't know what PS4 strategy is going to be on the price. And God only knows what they're going to do with the X1S pricing when X1X hits. So I think there's a lot left to be told. However, when you're talking about Pokemon is what makes Switch very interesting. And I know, John, you and I chatted about this on Twitter a little bit. Everyone's trying to compare the Switch to the Wii now in the first year. What's really interesting about the Switch and what the Wii didn't have is a Pokemon RPG hit in 19 or late 18 that's going to push households that own one Switch to own multiple Switches, right? Yeah. You're going to have all the kids wanting their own Switch. That hasn't happened in the console space before, and that provides incredible upside to even what the Wii was able to accomplish. So the long-term play on the Switch is much more interesting, I think, than the Wii, although the Wii might be a much faster seller out of the gate.
And that was the thing I always thought was possible coming into the Switch is, like, to build on that, you're not just looking at people who either had a Wii or Wii U, but for the first time you've got things like a mainline Pokemon coming to the Switch. That's a chance to take that 3DS market and get some of that in on the Switch as well because of the portability of it, because it's going to have, some of that stuff that was previously, kind of restricted to the handhelds. I hope we'll see some other stuff like Animal Crossing. But
poor Jeff.
if they can get some of that huge 3DS audience as well, there could be big numbers there.
I think the Switch is I think potentially the Switch is going to have a huge year next year. Like, I mean, I don't know if Pokemon's going to come out next year or not. I would imagine they're probably trying to get that thing out the door as quickly as fucking possible because they know what that's going to mean for them. I stand by my prediction that Metroid hits next holiday. Metroid Prime. You've got Yoshi, you got Kirby. I mean, the Switch is going to have a great year next year, I think.
Oh yeah.
But I wanted to move on to the Xbox One. We got more people filtering in the chat. Hey guys, what's going on? So I'm not going to be one of those guys that sits here and says, the Xbox is dying, the brand's dying, because I don't agree with that. Having said that, this hasn't been their gen, basically. We'll say that.
Which is unfortunate.
It absolutely is. I want everybody to do well. We should all want everybody to do well. If you don't want everybody to do well, you're nothing more than a fanboy. Having said that, the Xbox One had a pretty, I would say, abysmal June. I don't think it's their worst June, but I don't think it's far from it. So here's the thing, right? Like, if you look at the numbers, I won't say the numbers here because they are, they were leaked. But the PS4 sold 3 times what the Xbox One did this month.
But the Xbox also didn't have a Crash Bandicoot.
Which still blows my fucking mind that Crash Bandicoot did that.
My bad. We got the Voodoo Fence remaster.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I have an Xbox, and like I go on the Microsoft store, and I'm just like, it feels like there's just nothing happening there right now. Like, it's just, I know it'll pick up again in the fall when some of their big titles hit, but I'm not surprised it's that low. I think they'll be okay in the holiday when they got Crackdown and the third-party stuff. And
Crackdown doesn't look great to me, though. I mean,
no, but people are gonna buy it.
I mean, the first one, people doubted the first one. Obviously, and then it was awesome.
Well, the first one also had the Halo 3 beta packaged in.
Well, yeah, that's how people use. That's what people use to insult it. And say that, hey, you're buying it for the Halo beta. But then it turned out to be a great game.
Sam said something in chat that I want to touch on because I think it's interesting and I think it needs to be talked about. So he says, one thing I agree with and one thing I don't agree with. Lack of games released this year so far. Yes, Jeff just hit on that. I absolutely agree with that. And I used to be one of those guys who just as recent as last year said, I don't think, I don't think exclusives matter the way they used to. And I still kind of believe that, but it's hard to argue against the opposite right now, because up until this point, the PS4 has just had an absolutely insane year with exclusive games. And whether or not you like those games, I mean, there's something for everybody. Having said that, I don't agree with saying that lots of people holding out for the Xbox One X. Because, and I know that it's a mid-gen refresh, not a new console launch per se, but consoles traditionally do not perform well with the mass market at that price point. And the other thing is that I think this is going to sell comparable to the PS4 Pro, and that I don't think it's going to drive. Did somebody just die? Somebody just fell over. What was that? Somebody just collapsed in the room.
I heard it too.
But but I don't want to laugh at it if somebody actually fell over. I'm sitting here laughing and like Jay's lying on the floor somewhere. Jay, tell us you're okay.
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. All right, there he is. But I don't.
That's the mob trying to break down his door over his Mario comments.
The Twitter mob. I don't agree with saying that people are holding out for the Xbox One X. I think it'll sell to the core. You know, that core that already owns an Xbox One Slim. But if that's all it sells to, and it'll sell to a small subsection of those people, if that's all it sells to, it's not growing the brand, and it's not expanding the brand, and that's what Microsoft needs to do. Because I'm not saying Microsoft is going to sell Xbox. I don't think they will. I think the Xbox is just going to keep soldiering on, but at the same time, I think it's a bit, I don't want to say tone deaf, but it's a bit naive to think that Microsoft or the Xbox brand in particular isn't in kind of between a rock and a hard place here. And I wanted to see what all you guys think about that.
As an Xbox consumer who primarily plays this Xbox, I feel like the problem Microsoft's been having maybe like the last 2 years is like, for one thing, they're still trying to recover from the later days of the 360 and the early days of the Xbox One. But like, I don't know, I feel at the same time like they're concentrating more like on the core that already owns an Xbox One rather than try to drive new people in, which is a huge problem. Like, people,
like the whole message of the Xbox One X feels like you and me, we both have an Xbox One. It's kind of like, it feels like the message is like, yeah, we know like this was underpowered. We know we screwed up. Like, I feel like that's constantly been their message, trying to reverse that goodwill. But I feel like it's all focused on apologizing to their current fans, being like, this one is what you want.
You feel like it's an apology console. Is that more or less what you're saying?
Not at its apology console, but in terms of their marketing, specifically for the Xbox One X, I feel like they're very focused on their existing fan base, like you guys said. I don't see the games. I don't see the reaching out to developers. I don't see the broader attempt to try and diversify that and to try and bring new people in that maybe weren't there before. And I, like you said, at that price and without some big exclusive reasons to own it, they're going to bring some people in who just want the most powerful system. But when you're talking about, you say for June, like PS4 sold 3 times the Xbox One, like, the Xbox One numbers aren't cut in half because people are waiting on the X. Maybe there's 20% to 15% waiting on. It's not going to make a huge difference.
Well, let's throw that at Matt. Like, you brought up a really good point, Jeff, with the messaging, right? And I feel like they're catering to their base as well. And I don't necessarily think, me personally, I don't necessarily think that's the right move, because they need to get boxes in people's homes. And as of right now, they have not given me a great reason to go out and buy an Xbox One X, let alone an Xbox One Slim. I don't see a compelling reason for me to own one right now. Matt, I wanted to see what you thought about that, and whether or not you think focusing on that small but core base is a good move for them, or do you think it's a mistake?
Well, so first of all, it's a hell of a box, right? Like, the package itself is pretty amazing.
That's a sexy looking box.
Oh yeah, and the price point is going to be a challenge, and it's going to appeal to the super core, primarily Xbox gamer. I'm with you. I've pegged around a Pro number. I was a lot higher earlier in the year, but that price point has made me calm my expectations a little bit. So where I'm at with this is exclusive content, number one, right? So I agree with you that perhaps it's not as important as it was, say, 10, 15 years ago. However, the data suggests that the key differentiator in the performance of these two boxes is exclusive software. You can look at the exclusive software numbers and correlate it real closely to how the hardware is performing. So that gets to the next point, which is, are they doing the right thing? Or should they broaden the horizon, right? So my question there is, what is the long-term strategy? Are they going to continue making Xbox boxes? Are they going to move to making Windows 10 boxes that just happen to have a console user interface? And what does that mean? Does that mean they follow more like a Surface model where they're making a box every year that has the latest and greatest tech, and they're just running, or they're running Windows 10 games in there? So like, it's really hard for me to get my head around it. So I don't know what the long-term strategy is or what the long-term play is. So we're going to learn a lot this holiday. Are people going to respond to the 1X? Is the PS4 going to really undercut the price and really just, drive even bigger share? And what's the reaction to that? And so I don't know. I think there's a lot of story to be told, and it could go a lot of different ways.
Here's the problem that I think Microsoft is making, or I'm sorry, not the problem. Here's the mistake that I think Microsoft is making. The whole focus, and it's the same mistake I felt like PlayStation made with the PS4 Pro. Like, I bought a Pro because it felt like a natural evolution for me because I own a 4K HDR television. So I was like, okay, I might as well go out and buy a Pro. But again, the Pro was also $399, not $499. But I feel like with the Switch finding the success that it is, or that it has, like I get the general sense, and again, you guys let me know if I'm off the mark here, but I get the general sense that there is a lot more excitement about the Nintendo Switch than there is the Xbox One X. Far more excitement.
Of course.
Well, it's a new system versus a iterative one.
Well, exactly. No... But my point is.
But I mean, like Mario has. I mean, not Mario. So the Switch has Mario Odyssey, while Xbox has Crackdown 3.
State of Decay.
7.
But no, but that's not. But like, the games aren't my point. The power is my point. Like, yeah. Microsoft is harping on power, and I mean, look, they had those 90s horrible 90s buzz phrases running around E3, like, it's not even fair, and perfect pixels, and it's terrifying clarity. when really, I feel like outside of the base, and this goes for PS4 Pro, the PS4 gamers, Xbox gamers, I don't feel like the general market gives two shits about what is more powerful and what's not. I don't think people care about visuals. Look at the Nintendo Switch. People care about innovation, and now they want to be able to take their games with them. And that is why I feel like the Switch is a game changer. And that is why I feel that Microsoft is just getting the message wrong. Like, it's all about power, but it's like, okay, but these games are going to look fine on my Xbox One Slim. They're going to look just like Horizon Zero Dawn looks fine on my PS4 Slim. It's not. Yeah, I'm sorry, Matt. Go ahead, man.
Oh no. You're talking about differentiation, right? And it's how do you differentiate from the other guys? And I was listening to the Popzara podcast, and they made a great point that, like, you look at the bestseller list for the two boxes, and they don't look that dissimilar, right? And so how does one box differentiate itself from the other? And is power the answer to that? I don't know. Maybe for a very small, select niche of core gamers and people who influence their friends. But is that going to influence mom or, grandma buying a present for little Billy at Christmas? I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't know. What do the rest of you guys think? I want to know whether or not I'm spinning my wheels here. I don't know. Do you guys agree with me? Do you guys feel like the power narrative is just? Do you feel like Microsoft's barking up the wrong tree? Do you guys feel like this is a mistake?
Well, no.
It's always price.
Yeah, like I've said before, like, the power and the focus on the power is fine if they're just planning to do what Sony did and offer it as a premium product for the really hardcore fans, but just their marketing and a lot of the messaging around it suggests like this is a reset, like this is the next Xbox.
Like
this is everything.
Need this thing, yeah.
Like on their stage, it's all best on Xbox One X, blah blah blah. Like it's like the Kinect where they're like, this is what you want, and then that to me
the
is
Kinect sold very, very well.
Yeah, and it did exactly. But yeah, that to me that's the approach, and if that's the case, then I don't know.
I don't know. I don't. I mean, when you take all this into account, and then you look at the price point, which is fucking $4.99. I'm sure we there are some Xbox fanboys who listen to this podcast. I know there are, and I'm sure I'll get flayed for it. But I just don't see the I just don't see the Xbox One X resonating like Microsoft wants it to.
It's not going to.
You don't think it like and Jay, you're an Xbox gamer, and that's your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not going to. I mean, like the only footage of like Xbox One X games you've really seen is Forza 7, which you can just play on a regular Xbox One, and Final Fantasy 15, which everyone's probably already played already. Like, I know this past week the PlayerUnknown's developers, they announced that they could only get it running to 30 frames per second or like 40 frames per second with 100 players. I mean, like as Jeff said, it just sounds like a whole reset. I mean, like, if it's only running like that well on the Xbox One X, it's probably gonna run like shit on the original Xbox One.
Well, and that's kind of the other thing is that the Xbox One X's biggest enemy is not going to be the PS4. It's going to be the Xbox One Slim, because all these games have to run. They have to run on the Slim, and they don't just have to run; they have to run well. Because you see where I'm going.
Yeah, I mean, like, okay, so like Tekken 7 came out recently, and I think Tekken 7 on the PS4 was like 900p or 1080p. I don't remember, but on the Xbox One, it was only 720p, and like load times between matches are like 40 seconds to a minute sometimes, which is absolutely ridiculous for a video game in 2017. Like, it runs, it just doesn't run well.
I don't know. I just.
If I may.
Yeah, please.
Sam had a really good point in chat, just like, and one that I tend to agree with, in that the Xbox One X, it also is serving a dual purpose of being a sort of soft reboot of Microsoft's Xbox One image and branding. Mm-hmm. This is their chance to, like, people are still holding 2013 over them. This is their chance to do away with that, and the One X will be a chance to finally reset the narrative and stop it being so overwhelmingly negative for them.
I don't think they're doing a good job of that, though.
We'll
don't. I mean, look at fucking Aaron Greenberg tweeting out pictures of him biting into a graphics chip.
You have to understand that's for the Twitter hardcore.
Yeah, that's a very different.
Yeah, nobody knows what Aaron Greenberg's tweeting.
That's a very.
I mean, the only people who get that are the people who
the
only people who get that picture are the people who are licking their Switch games.
I'm talking about people that you don't understand, John, is that people still believe the things that were announced pre-2013 about the.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a minute, dude. It's been 4 years. People know now.
And yet,
the thing is, you can do a soft reboot early, like, for a year into this gen, but we're already like 4 years in. People have their systems. They've got their friends. They're in the ecosystem, and I think it's a lot harder to do that now and reset and pull new people in. Like, people have decided, a lot of them, like, how many 60 million PS4, what 35? Like, we're almost at 100 million.
Yeah,
there's
people have next gen systems.
There's another very important piece of information for this holiday that might make things play out differently, and that's the console launch of PlayerUnknown Battleground.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's going to move the needle like you think it will. I think it's going to be a PC primarily game.
If it works and the console audience embrace it, that could be huge.
It
man.
could be. I mean,
it's gonna be huge.
I think a lot of Xbox One players do want to buy it. I don't think a lot of people are going to buy Xbox One consoles to play it.
No, it's not a system seller.
Well, hold on. I want to get Brandon's take on this, because Brandon is our resident PUBG guy. Brandon, like, if you knew this was available on an Xbox One X, and you had a choice between playing it on a console or playing it on a PC, what would you pick? Because you play on both. You play on consoles and PCs.
Oh, absolutely on PC.
Yeah.
Well, for the long-term community.
Better question would be, if you didn't have a PC, would you buy an Xbox One for PUBG?
Yeah,
that is I think that is a better question. But personally, would I, if I didn't have a PC? Yes, I probably would.
So that's, I mean, that's what Michael Pachter's point was in his interview earlier this week, when he was saying that he thought that PUBG would do a better job of selling Xbox Ones this holiday than some of the exclusives on PS4, the Japanese exclusive you pointed out in particular, would sell PS4s. And I kind of agree with him on that. I don't know if you guys saw that quote.
I did.
I did not actually.
It's a very, I mean, and you have to understand that PlayerUnknown has one of those key vital qualities that all games wish they could have, is that it is beloved by the streamer community.
Yeah, it's the game.
Yeah.
It's the game.
Live out to stream it, and then if you suddenly start having all these streamers playing the Xbox version, that goes a long way. And it's part of why games like Destiny and Call of Duty sell so well on PlayStation, is because they have exclusive PlayStation content and get stuff first. Streamers start choosing the PlayStation version to showcase.
I will say that as somebody who has never played PUBG, mostly because my computer won't do it, watching the live streams of that people playing that give me fucking life. Like, that shit is hilarious to watch.
Yeah, it's a blast to watch.
Well, and we all know the top-selling game this year was it still Ghost Recon Wildlands?
Yeah, Ghost Recon,
yeah.
which is
Like,
right up the same
game.
alley.
It's not the same game, but there's some like people love to hop online and shoot shit with their friends.
Yeah, it's the same. It's like just grouping up with a squad of like 3 or 4 of your friends.
And this is moving a million.
It's just
very
open
easy
environment, just finding stuff to shoot. Yeah.
What's PUBG selling? Like $1 million a month on PC now?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
It's at 5 million or so right now.
It's
Like, when's it going to move on consoles?
It's at the point where it's becoming a kind of a minor phenomenon, actually.
Well, here's
a
a
major
question.
phenomenon.
I guess a major one, yeah, major shit.
Does anyone know the sales of Ark Survival Evolved on Xbox?
That's a big streaming game.
Yeah, that's
Exactly, because PlayerUnknown will easily beat the sales Ark gets on Xbox. So if you want to know a kind of like baseline of what to maybe expect, look what Ark's done on Xbox as this early access exclusive. And yes, we know when the game formally launches, it'll hit PlayStation, just like PlayerUnknown. But you get those months and months of only on Xbox narrative, and then by the time it does release on another system, people have already moved on. Look at Tomb Raider: Rise of the Tomb Raider.
Tomb Raider: Rise of the Tomb Raider.
Rise of the Tomb
That name is so dumb. I hate that name they give him.
Fucking right. It wasn't the next one called like Shadow of the Tomb Raider or something like that. Like, it's the most generic shit.
That's the next one.
Yeah, no, but I know my point is it's like for naming these new Tomb Raider games, it's like they took all the like a big fucking wall full of generic game titles and they're like Origins, Rise, Shadow of, and they're like, just throw fucking darts at it and we'll come up with the name for the next Tomb Raider.
I can't wait for the next one to be called Tomb of the Tomb Raider.
The title of the newest Shadow of Mordor sequel is pretty unfortunate.
Shadow of War, yeah.
Shadow of War, like, you could not get more generic.
Actually, I have a hot
take. Like a mobile game. It sounds like a mobile game.
No,
Shadow of War.
Hold on, guys. Jay has a hot take, and after last week, I don't know if I can fucking handle anymore.
All right, I think Battlegrounds is some more on the Xbox than Crackdown 3 is.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. No, that's not a hot take, dude. That's cold as ice.
Which is insane, knowing that Crackdown 3 is supposed to be one of the biggest first-party titles in the fall.
I don't think
Crackdown. I don't think development cycle.
Well, what's the only first-party title has up to go against is Forza, right? Like, they're just dependent on the third parties to move consoles.
Well, here's the thing. I'd love to get Matt's take on this. I don't think Crackdown 3 is going to sell great.
Oh man, put me on the spot like that.
Yeah, let's hear it, dude. That's why you're here. Let's hear it.
We need those sick predictions.
Wait till Gamescom can make that prediction.
So PUBG absolutely hits the Xbox person like right in the face. Like, PUBG is a perfect game for the Xbox platform and for the folks that like to play Xbox. So I absolutely think that's going to be a big hit. It's their best hope of really kind of breaking out this holiday, and I hope they do, because that game is something else. Crackdown, man, like when I saw it live at E3, it looked great. When I saw it in the trailers, it didn't so much. Response has been really spotty. I haven't seen pre-orders or heard anything about pre-orders yet, so it's really tough to call from there. So,
and Matt, I'll tell you what else, man. If I could interject here real quick, that footage that we saw at San Diego Comic-Con did not do the game any favors, in my opinion, at all.
So yeah, so it's like you have these really diverse reactions to the game because people are seeing it in different stages, and how is that, sometimes a game will get a stigma and it'll carry even though it's completely unfair. And is that going to happen here? I don't know. Like, I love Crackdown. I thought Crackdown was awesome. I can't wait to play it. I just hope it's the version I saw at E3 and not like some of the stuff I saw in the trailers. I don't know. Like, it's a total mystery to me how well that game's going to do.
Maybe the trailer version's the version that comes on the disc, and like the live version you saw is the one that uses the power of the cloud.
I think they need to show that multiplayer too sweet.
I can't believe they haven't shown multiplayer yet. They haven't shown any?
Not a single bit. Yeah, but that's what they've been touting this entire time is the destructibility of the multiplayer using the power of the cloud. And as Jeff said, we have seen none of it. We have seen absolutely nothing. I'm
gonna stop right there. The cloud stuff is nonsense. Anyone who's works with tech knows that that's not doing much. But the multiplayer reveal looked awesome. If they can keep that destruction.
The most extensive footage that anybody has seen in the game was what we saw at San Diego Comic-Con this past weekend, and you've got these dunderheads who obviously don't play fucking video games, playing the game. Like, there's this comedian playing the game, and there was a car crash, and the physics are weird, by the way. There's a car crash, and the guy playing the game who has no idea what he's doing, and you could see Larry hurt. Larry's like, just give me the fucking controller, and this guy's like, I think this guy needs a parking ticket. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, give the fucking controller to somebody who knows how to play a video game. But it's a perception thing. It's not just that the game didn't look enticing to me. This kind of shit matters, and I can't believe that this is Xbox, or this is how Xbox is actually choosing to market this game. And Randall Thor 19, our friend Rand, he made a video about this on his channel, and he said the exact same thing. He is flabbergasted that Microsoft is marketing the game in this manner by putting it in the hands of people who clearly don't play games, know nothing about video games, that are making I just want to go around and shoot things. Like, why can I shoot this person? Is this person a bad guy? And you can see Larry Herb just like with his fucking face in his hands, and he's like, "What have we done?" And I think go ahead, man. Go ahead.
And the thing is, Crackdown 3 is such a video game. It's not even like a cinematic game. It's a straight up like arcade video game. It's not something you want to give like just a casual person just walking by like the chance to play.
Yeah, you're not gonna buy Crackdown 3 for the compelling single player campaign. You're not. No. And that's all we've seen so far. And seeing as how it's such a multiplayer focused experience, I'm taken aback at the fact that that's all we've seen of the game. And I feel like Gamescom may be too little too late, but who knows? I hope I'm wrong.
I think you'll be surprised. I think a lot of people will be backpedaling their statements once we see the multiplayer in action. Gamescom is the do or die moment for Crackdown. That will fully determine it. That's my take.
So I want to focus on this article on gamesindustry.biz. We've got about half an hour left, and I'd still like to get some Splatoon 2 talking if we can. I'd like to not have to change the description of our podcast video tonight. But this is a really interesting article that Matt actually sent me, and it's about how digital isn't cannibalizing retail. And we had an interesting conversation about this, Jeff and Brandon and Finneman before you guys hopped in, before we went live. In the sense that this is interesting to me, right? Because I owned about 267 games on PS4. Don't judge me. And 99, hell, not even 97, 98 to 99% of them have been digital, right? Like, I own very few physical games. And this is a complete and total sea change for me. When you look at the 7th generation, when I was playing on PS3 and Xbox 360, all my games were almost exclusively physical, and I didn't have nowhere to put them, so I would play them, I would trade them in, and that was that. A few games I kept around, like Dark Souls and stuff like that. But this generation, I have been almost exclusively digital, because buying games on the PS4, the PlayStation Network still isn't great, but if you've ever tried to buy a game digitally on the PS3 PlayStation Network, fuck that. That was a fucking nightmare. So this was interesting to me. Like, the article says that the strong majority of full game sales still come from packaged retail and will be for some years to come, which is surprising to me, because at this point I thought that digital would start to overtake physical, but clearly that's not the case. And not just Matt, but I wanted to see what you guys think about this, and whether or not you guys are starting to make that shift from physical to digital, or do you? I don't know. What do you guys think? I think it's a really interesting question.
Well, so that So the idea around what we were talking about is there's a whole bunch to unpack there. First, the idea of digital not cannibalizing retail. What that means is retail sales have flattened. They've continued to be relatively flat for the last few years. And the change in sales we saw in the physical space from like 2010 to now has been coordinated with a decline in the number of packaged games that publishers have made, right? So publishers made about 730 games or so in 2010. They made about 250 last year. You look at that decline over time in packaged game count, and it correlates at a 98% rate with the decline in retail sales, right? So it's not digital that's making physical go down. Physical is going down because publishers have made fewer games. Digital has, in fact, been growing the pie. People are making a lot more purchases. They're purchasing games at discount. They're purchasing games pre-launch. It's a big convenience factor, and a lot of it's incremental. So the idea is, we have a really healthy digital market that's growing. However, package sales still account for 70% of a game's full game volume, and digital is
still getting the games from Walmart and Target and stuff.
Right, and digital's adding all this opportunity for both incremental full game sales that wouldn't have been sold if people had to go into a store, and all the downloadable content and microtransactions on top of it. So really the idea is, yeah, digital's getting a lot bigger and it's growing and it's fantastic, but that doesn't mean it's a zero-sum game where physical has to lose. If physical's going to lose, it's because the publishers and first parties stop making them.
Interesting.
Which, I mean, look at Capcom and Square Enix. They've started releasing a lot of their titles digital only, like Capcom, their Phoenix Wright games, only digital.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Square Enix, Lost Sphere, and like I Am Setsuma, up until the Switch release, were digital only. Lost Sphere, you can only buy the physical edition from their store.
Oh man, I want the physical edition on Switch.
Yeah, well then you better go to their store and order it.
I will.
But I mean, that's what we're seeing. These titles that normally would get physical editions are coming out digital only. And then a lot of times you're finding games after the fact through like limited run games or these other services will do a physical run, but for the most part they are default digital.
This is interesting because I mentioned this before we went live, and Jeff and Brandon and Finneman, this is before you guys came into the podcast, but like I want to buy everything digital on PS4. Like I have, unless there's like a really cool collector's edition. Which I will buy those if there's a really compelling package. But generally, I buy everything digital because it cuts down on clutter. I find it more convenient. But on the system that it would be most convenient for, which is the Nintendo Switch, I am compelled to buy everything physical. And I think it's because it's just nice to have cartridges back. I love cartridges, and I know that sounds weird, but
that's cool. I dig cartridges.
Well, Brandon, like it's for me, it is much more satisfying, just from like a tactile standpoint, to kind of like slide that cartridge into the Switch and hear it click, and close the port, as opposed to just like sliding a disc into a PS4 or an Xbox. Because I do that with my DVD or with my Blu-ray player. I do it with my PS4, and I do it with my car. And to me, it's not even so much about, because let's face it, I play a lot on my Switch. I take it places. It would be far more convenient for me to download everything, right? That way I'm not carting around 6 or 7 or how many ever cartridges I end up owning. But I don't want to do that. I want to own the cartridges on the Switch. I want to own those physical releases, even though it is more of a hassle to carry them around with me. It even, and if I want to play it docked, I gotta dock it, open it up, pop the cartridge up, pop the cartridge back in, and dock it, which is the antithesis of what the Switch means, or what it's supposed to represent anyway. So I wanted to see maybe do you guys find that sort of reason compels you to stick with physical, or am I just being a weirdo? And John, you're crazy. you're making things on the Switch a lot more difficult than they have to be.
I personally just like physical because I like having my collection on the wall.
I just don't have room for it, dude. That's like, as apart from Switch games, that's why I don't own a shitload of PS4 games on physical, because I just don't have the room for it. I didn't have, you know. Go ahead, Jeff.
I'm tight for room, but I like physical for a few reasons. I do lend games to friends now and then. You know, I move around. You know, eventually when I have a house, I could see myself having a couple consoles, and I trade stuff in. I try not to. If it's a game I really love and I think it's a classic, I hang on to it. But like last week, I just traded in like 7 games for Splatoon. You know, NHL, first Battlefront, because I'm going to grab Battlefront 2. I'm going to get $15 for them. And like, you know, there's a collector's element to it too. I'm also a little, you know, not that I think Sony or Microsoft's going out of business anytime soon. I'm kind of skeptical what's going to happen with all my digital license, like, you know, because I still got my N64 from 20 years ago and all my cartridges.
That's awesome.
But if digital was a thing back in the N64 days, you know, I'm curious how these digital licenses are going to work. You know, if Sony, for whatever reason, did go out of business, you know, I mean, aside from PlayStation, they're not doing so hot. So if that ever goes south, you know what? When my kids are older and I want to break out a console, you know, I can dig this out of storage. And yeah, I don't have the patches or the online connectivity, but most of the games I can pop them in and I can at least boot them up and play them. So that's one thing. You know, so the big games, the classic games, you know, the stuff like The Last of Us and Uncharted, like that, I want to hang on to those. And that's one reason I'm kind of never going to go fully digital, but I like the convenience of it for sure.
I will say that thought has crossed my mind as well. Is like, you know, if something were to ever happen to Sony, for example, I'm just using them as the example, and all my purchases are tied to digital licenses, what happens? I mean, can I not play those games anymore? So yeah, I mean, that is I think that's a valid concern, and it's something that I've considered as well. So we've got like a little under half an hour left, and I want to talk about both Splatoon 2 and talk about some of the games that we played that we had to stop because for whatever reason we just couldn't keep going. And so I think most of us have played Splatoon 2 at this point. Matt, have you played Splatoon at all?
No, I haven't got into that yet.
Okay,
It's on the list.
Okay, so let me ask you guys this. Would you guys rather talk about Splatoon 2, or would you rather talk about games we've started and just couldn't bring ourselves to finish? Because not everybody in the panel has played Splatoon 2.
I haven't played Splatoon. Yeah,
I haven't played Splatoon 2.
Okay, well,
I've only played a few hours of it. I don't really have much to say. So
okay, well, in that case, why don't we talk about games that we have started and just couldn't bring ourselves to finish for whatever reason? Because I know everybody's got those fucking games. And Crick in chat says, "What a neutral podcast." So I felt like I should start off because this just happened to me, and Jay already knows where I'm going with this. But I finally decided to put down Final Fantasy XII HD for good. I will never finish this game. I made it all the way to the final boss in 2006, and I died once, and I was like, I don't fucking care. And I didn't play it until 10 years later. This year, and I made it all the way to the first part of the Pharos, which is near the end of the game, and I was fighting the boss Hydro, and I died over and over and over because the boss can inflict every status ailment in the book, and I just kept dying, and for an hour and a half I banged my head against this guy, and finally I was like, you know what, I don't fucking care. Like, I don't like the combat.
Like, what's the point of seeing the ending if you don't?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't care. Like, I don't like the combat. I don't like the characters. I think the villain sucks. The story, I mean, there's like, I love a good villain, and there's no interaction between Vayne and the rest, and like the entire party until the very end of the game. The very end of the game. So I didn't feel invested in that conflict between your main characters and the main antagonist. I don't feel like it was earned at all. Vaughn is a terrible protagonist who, and people say, well, John, it's an ensemble cast. And you know, they're all parts of a whole, but Vaughn is the main protagonist of the game. When you're in a town, you can't walk around as Bosch, you can't walk around as Ash. Vaughn is the avatar for the player character when you're walking around in town. He's the default character. You cannot switch it from Vaughn's perspective to like Fran or Balthier's perspective. So Vaughn is the main character, and he's vapid. He has absolutely nothing to do with the game whatsoever.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, nothing at all. He's there. He's like, I want to be a sky pirate, so I'm just going to tag along. And I realized that the game, I can't do it. And it sucks for me, because you guys know I am a huge Final Fantasy fan. I have
Oh,
played,
I did not know that.
right? Yeah, I mean,
didn't.
yeah, right. Sarcastic prick. But yeah, everybody who knows me knows that I'm a huge Final Fantasy fan, and I tried my fucking hardest to like Final Fantasy 12 after all these years, and I realized. It was Monday night. I realized right before I went on vacation. I realized I am at the point where I am forcing myself to go through this. I am forcing myself to play this, and I'm forcing myself to like this. And even though I spent $59 on it, I feel like I felt like I had to like this. I had to like this because I like Final Fantasy and I spent my money on it. But I just decided to just give up. I was like, I can't do this anymore. So right now,
I realized 20 years ago that I hate Final Fantasy VIII. Like, I've never had a problem admitting that I don't like a Final Fantasy.
I just don't like saying it, man. But yeah, that's my most recent. That's my most recent one. I just could not finish Final Fantasy 12. I just can't do it, and I finally accepted that I never will. But I want to hear about. I want to hear about the rest of you guys. What are some games that you have started, and the more popular or more well received game, the better. Because I think that. Oh, interesting. I don't know if that's all that. I don't know if that's not much of a. I don't know if that's.
Sorry, what game was that? I didn't hear that.
I didn't hear it either.
Skyrim.
Oh, Skyrim.
I'm with you. I'm with you there 1,000% on Skyrim. My God.
Yeah, but I
I
mean,
cannot be bothered.
But is there actually an end to Skyrim?
there is, and I would
Really?
say.
Is that the real question?
You can just play the main quest. It's pretty linear, actually.
Well, so here's the thing, right? Like, I don't know if that's all that. I mean, I know people who love Skyrim and have put like 150 hours in Skyrim and they never finished it. So I don't know. I don't know if Skyrim counts.
I can't even be bothered to like dick around in Skyrim. Like, other people that put hours into it, I can't be bothered. The game does nothing for me. It's just one of those games where I can't be bothered to finish it. I can't be bothered to even push myself through the story mode. Or
Well, I thought the question was kind of like games you were initially kind of like you got a good chunk through and then came to like a realization, or is this games that you never got into?
No, this is more the former, Jeff.
Okay, well, let me think on that then.
Like,
you guys go.
Like,
I'll admit that the main quest line for Skyrim sucks.
I'm talking like a game that you got into and you made it through a healthy portion of the game and you were just like, I can't fucking do this. I'm sorry. Like I tried as hard as I fucking could, and I just can't do it. The Witcher 3 was another one for me.
What about Watch Dogs 2 might make my list on the first one.
Oh, Jeff loved Watch Dogs 2.
I did.
Great game,
you, Jeff?
solid team. I love Ubi. I love Ubi so much. They're one of my favorite publishers. But the characters in that, I was like, okay, I'm into this game. I dig it. I kind of see where it's going. But man, as that story kept going, I just kept saying, what am I doing with my time?
No.
I thought so. I had never played Watch Dogs 2, but I felt like here's my problem with Watch Dogs, like the series as a whole, right? Like, because I dropped Watch Dogs about maybe 30 hours into it. I was like, I'm done, because I felt Aiden Pierce was a terrible character. I couldn't relate to him. He did not come off as a fucking hacker to me. In fact, if Aiden Pierce was walking around my neighborhood, I would call the police because it's a man in a fucking trench coat looking down at the ground in a hat and he's looking around. I'm like, no.
I mean, John, chill. He might just be listening to Nine Inch Nails.
He might be, dude. Yeah, maybe he's edgy as fuck. I mean, who knows? But we got people saying Dark Souls in chat. That will not fly.
Wait, hold on. I got one. Dark Souls.
Oh, dude, you're an ass.
Nice.
You know what?
It's serious, and I'll explain why.
Please.
It was because of a game-breaking bug. Because I got to the final boss of Dark Souls, and I wasn't good at parrying, so it was going to take me a while to beat him because I had to learn to get good before I could beat him. So anyway, I went back to him one time, and I fell through the floor at the bonfire, like the last bonfire, right before the entrance to like the area with the final boss.
Yeah,
and I just I reloaded my save, and I would fall through the floor again and again, so I just never was able to actually finish the game.
Well, do we count?
Not my fault.
I don't know if we count that though. I don't know if we count that.
I would have did it otherwise. Yeah, I would have did it otherwise.
All right, well then I have one legitimately. I mean, you guys remember when I started streaming Bloodborne finally, and I finally gave it a shot. I never ended up finishing it. I did it. I just kind of fell off and can't be. I find it very hard to bring myself to get back into it.
So why though?
It it never took me. It never like got into me and made me want to like go back and play. Like at one point I left for a work thing, and so there was like 2 weeks where I didn't play it, and then I just never got back into the habit of playing it. I never was like, man, I want to play some Bloodborne. I just kind of shrug.
That actually doesn't surprise me. I never would have thought that you were a Bloodborne guy to begin with.
But I love Dark Souls. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Jeff, what about you, man?
I got two. Well, I'm sure I have lots if I went back. I got two kind of from this generation. First one would be Shadow of Mordor. Wait, is that the first one?
That's the first one.
Yeah.
Shadow of Mordor.
I got it mixed up.
Shadow of
You know,
Mordor.
it was like so
Shadow of Game of War.
the two games I'm going to talk about, like first of all, I'm a diehard, like I love Lord of the Rings. I have like 3 copies of every book. I have all the DVDs, the extended DVDs, the extended Blu-rays. Like I love Lord of the Rings. So I was like, this well-reviewed Lord of the Rings game, I was like, hell yeah, I'm in. And I played it, and like for the first bit, I was like, this is awesome. This is fun. And then there's like 2 distinct areas in the game. There's like a first map and kind of a second area. And I beat the first map and got to the second area, and I was like, oh, I have to do all this stuff over again, kind of like a new region with all these things.
Yeah,
I was like,
you're talking about the one with like the
Same
forest,
shit,
like it's
different area,
green,
yeah.
and
yeah, it's just so ugly and bland, and like I had fun with the gameplay up to that point, but I was like, all right, yeah, I'm good. Like the story just wasn't.
That's exactly.
I was like, I've seen what this game had to offer, and it was cool for 10 hours, and I'm done. And the second one was Alien Isolation. Again, I'm like a diehard Alien fan. I have every movie, and I fucking and like it's game again, another well-reviewed game. People praise the shit out of it. And I started it, and I was in love. Like the atmosphere, the visuals, it's like bang on. It looks like Alien. And God, I got 6 or 7 hours in, and the first part, the start was really good when you're kind of just figuring things out, and then I was like creeping around trying to stealth some androids and scavenge for some stuff, and I was like, this just isn't fun anymore.
Padding.
So, yeah, it's like, and I looked up, I was like, if it's maybe another couple hours, I was like, all right, it's like fucking like 15 or 17 hours long or something like that. So I was like, no, I'm not doing this.
So I heard Matt gasp when you said Alien Isolation.
Oh, I love that game so much, man. It's up there with my top 3 games of all time.
So
that breaks my heart.
I am planning to give it another try. Like I have a PC now, and it'll run well. I want to like, I'll rebuy it, I'll max it out, and I'll give it another go. Because I feel like I either wasn't in the mood or I did something wrong. Because well, why do you love it so much? Like maybe you can help get me back on this.
Just what you said. The atmosphere is spot on. The music is great. I played on a PC, so it ran very well for me. Once you place yourself in that world and you accept the limitations of what that game forces you to do, it's great. But yeah, you're right. You have to be in a very particular state of mind to really kind of get into that game, because it can be a little unfair, a little brutal, and you're definitely not feeling like you're running around there like you have power. Like it's a very powerless kind of game. And if you're not in the mood for that game, it's just not going to be fun.
Oh, I should qualify. I have trouble playing like horror type games. Not because I'm scared, but I just find them stressful. Like I remember even in The Last of Us, there was parts where I would like certain nights. I like that's like literally my favorite game of all time, up there with FF7. And I couldn't do it. Like sometimes I get home and I just want to relax. And that's not my idea of relaxing. I'm like sweating and gripping my controller. And so that's a part of it.
Yeah,
Oh, did we lose Matt?
You scream like in your room. So if you don't like horror games, dude, then nope, it's not going to work. Because I think it's tense as hell.
So people are talking about Alien Isolation in the chat now, and I want to echo something that both Matt and Jeff said. Like I really enjoyed Alien Isolation. I finished it, but the thing is so this is a game I dropped, but came back to. It took me 6 months to finish Alien Isolation. I made it about 12 hours into the game, and I was like, fuck, when is this game gonna end? I was like the first 4 or 5 hours were fantastic because I also am a huge fan of the Alien franchise, and the aesthetic of the game was great. You know, it looked like the 80s movie. It didn't look like something out of Prometheus. And I was like, oh, this is fucking fantastic. And the alien was scary, and I was like, oh, we got a scary alien again. And after about 12 hours, I was like, will this game fucking end? Because at this point, I'm stealthing androids that won't fucking die. and one hit kills, and I'm like, God. So I put the game down, and I didn't touch it for like 3 months. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And then over the next 3 months, I would play here and there and play here and there until finally I finished it. And when I finished it, my play count was at 22 hours. And I was like, this game would be a fucking 9.5 if it were 15 hours shorter.
Granted. Yeah.
So I think Jeff hit the nail, and Brandon mentioned it too. When you talk about filler, I think about Alien Isolation, because the entire middle portion of that game where you fought nothing but those working Joe androids could have been completely eliminated. Completely. And it would have been a much better game. A much better game. Jay, what about you, man?
All right, so I'm gonna be like Jeff. I'll have two answers. I guess most recently, a game that's come out this year that I've tried to get into numerous times and I just can't do it is Nier Automata.
Yeah, I can understand that.
I'm a huge fan of the first Nier. I love the first Nier. I got all the endings in it, but the sequel, I couldn't get into it. Like, I know everyone says the real game doesn't start until your first playthrough, but even the first playthrough it didn't draw me in. Like, the first one actually did draw me in, the first playthrough, and this one I just couldn't get into it. And I guess a game that's a classic that I couldn't get into, or I've gotten into, but I've never beaten just because I don't have the desire to, is Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, Brandon is.
Whatever. Final Fantasy VIII is one of his favorite games, so we're just gonna.
Yeah, I've never beaten Final Fantasy VII. I always get to the end of the second disc or like the third disc, and I kind of drop it. I'm just like, I kind of know what happens already.
Did you say the end of the second disc?
Yeah.
Oh, you're right at the end.
The third disc is like the end of the
end.
That's like the end of the game.
The third disc is the final dungeon.
No, I don't really want.
Dude, you can go kill Sephiroth like in half an hour if you want.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
I just don't really like doing it.
It's better than 7.
Eight is better than 7.
Who just said that?
Only crazy people actually believe.
Was that Fitterman who said that?
It was.
I'm gonna mute you.
8 is a travesty of gameplay. Like, I don't care what you think about the story. The gameplay in it is fucking trash.
Yeah,
8 is a philosophical masterpiece.
No, the junction system is pure.
I have to jump in front of Jay and take the bullet for him. I like 8. I hate the draw system, and I don't care for the story that much. But
the level scaling, where if you just fucking run away from every fight, you're
whatever.
Every boss in one hit.
Just get 99 ultimate spells and jump
every time. It's just running away from every battle.
Neither of them can hold a candle to 9. So
9 is pretty good.
9's really fucking good.
9 is really fucking good, but the combat, the ATB in 9 does not.
It is slow. It's slow.
It's fine.
Slow as fuck.
It is. It's fine. It's slow and fine.
The Steam version is the definite version, just because you can speed up the battles.
Yeah.
So here's a game that, and if JT were here, he would probably be pissed off at me. But I picked up Metro, and I got about 5 hours in. Or maybe about 6 hours in, and I was like, no.
Fuck, man, me too.
Yeah,
Finally, I'm good. I'm good. I don't feel alone.
No, 23.3. I bought Redux with 23.3 in last late, and and I was like, again, the atmosphere, amazing. I was like into it for a bit, and then there was like one encounter where I was just like frustrated with it. I was like, why am I playing this?
Jeff, let me ask you, which encounter was it?
Oh fuck, man, it's been a while. There's a part where you go. There's the first outside part, and then there's a second outside part, and then I think I was in like a building, and there's a big, almost like a boss fight, like a big monster chasing you through. It's like a library or a big kind of open room, and I gave up there.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember where I gave up. But I got into the second town, and there's like a big wave-based battle where these mutants are just coming at you from all sides. And like these things are impossible to take down. You don't get a lot of ammo, and I felt like the shooting was just not good. Like none of the guns and none of the weapons in the game felt good to me. I thought
they feel really weak, like pea shooters.
And like for a game that relies heavily on stealth in some parts, like the stealth felt completely half baked and not believable and not part of the world. And I just. I didn't. I mean, the Russian, like the atmosphere at first is fantastic, but when you see the same fucking sewers over and over and over and over and over for what I'm assuming is like a 12, 15-hour experience, like I just after 6 hours, man, of seeing nothing but like damn fucking sewers, I was like, no, I can't do this. it just
Matt Piscatella loves Metro too. We're just killing him.
I know, poor Matt. Matt's like,
Is he a Metro fan?
Oh.
I think I'm learning
dislike it.
something. I think I'm learning something about myself today. Like apparently I love these games where you feel powerless and your guns are shit and you got to figure out a way to get through and not die. Apparently I love these games, so I don't know. I'm learning a lot.
Matt is discovering that he's a masochist right here on SGDC.
Well, I knew that. I just didn't know it extended to video games.
I mean, he does keep coming on this podcast, so
He does. This is his second time
he does
on the
love
podcast.
team.
But I want to be clear. I'm not saying like Alien or Metro are bad games. I actually think they're very well made games, and I respect a lot of what they do. I'm just speaking like personally. I just got a point where whatever it was doing was not jiving with what I wanted to do. So,
Oh, of
And I
course.
feel, like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like that's the case for a lot of us here.
Yeah.
Mentioning our games.
except your shit Mario comment.
That was garbage.
It's not a shit Mario comment. All right.
Here's a game that I probably, because I did the review for this, and I wanted to. The only reason I finished this is because I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna review this game. But Gravity Rush 2 is a game that I probably should have stopped playing, and didn't. And I actually regret not. It's weird. I regret not stopping that game, because I feel like it was time wasted. I absolutely did not like Gravity Rush 2 at all. But another one is a Neo for me. I never finished Neo. I made it about 2/3 of the way through, and this is coming from the Dark Souls guy.
Yeah, I was like, that seems like it'd be right up your alley. That's crazy.
So here's the thing about Neo, man. Like, everybody praised it and said it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. I thought Dark Souls 3 was better. I think Dark Souls itself is better. I felt like I love combat in the game, but I felt like the combat in Neo skirted the line between challenging but fair and completely fucking ridiculously overbearingly unfair. And Dark Souls wanted you to succeed. Like, it was extremely challenging, but Dark Souls was like looking in your face like, I know you can do it. It's really difficult, but I know you can do it, and eventually you'll do it. I feel like Neo is saying, fuck you, you'll never do it. You know, like, you're just not good enough. Sorry, our game is too hard. And I felt like going in, I felt like when they were making Neo, I felt like they were like, you know, okay, we need to differentiate ourselves from Dark Souls. So we need to make this game as soul crushingly difficult as possible, in the worst possible ways. In the worst possible ways. Just do whatever you can to make the game punishingly, unfairly difficult. And I feel like that's just kind of, and you don't hear a lot about it, right? Like, so I feel like I'm probably not the only one who had that reaction, because people still talk. I mean, Dark Souls still has a vibrant online community even today. I don't see anybody in the community or hear anybody in the community talking about Neo at all.
I feel like Neo had like his like big pop when it came out, and then it just died really quickly.
It did. I feel like it did too.
I think it's because like, as he's like, I feel like Neo is trying to like market towards more like the combat of Dark Souls and not like the actual world and lore of Dark Souls itself. And I feel that's where it falls flat. I haven't played Neo yet. That's just from the impressions I've heard.
Well, the environments are almost all the same. Like, it's just like feudal Japanese palace, feudal Japanese palace, feudal Japanese field, feudal Japanese temple, feudal Japanese palace. Like feudal, and then a series of caves. Like, there's no variety in environments like in Dark Souls. We have Blighttown and, you know, Valley of the Drakes and you know, the of course, you know, Anor Londo. Like, you've got all these amazing amazing stages and all this variation in location. And in Neo, it's just the same generic Japanese environments over and over. And I was so stoked about Neo because it looked like a mashup of Dark Souls and Onimusha, which was incredibly appealing to me because I love both these series. And it just kind of, I mean, Gabe and I would go back and forth in DMs about how fucking unfairly difficult the game was. But yeah, that surprises a lot of people. But Neo, I just never finished it. I never will. I have no desire to go back to it whatsoever.
I've heard from a lot of people that it's overly long.
It's overly long and it's overly difficult. And I know that's weird coming from me who loves Dark Souls as much as I do. But no. I mean, I have my limits. And I know the difference between something that is incredibly challenging but in a fair way, and something that is just, it pulls out all the stops and stacks the deck against the player in the most unfair ways possible.
Can I throw out one more? How
Please.
about so Dishonored is a game I absolutely loved, adored it, played it 3 times.
Oh, I don't like where this is going already.
I just love Dishonored so much. Dishonored 2. I
Matt,
really enjoyed the first 3 levels. I was really into it. And then somewhere in the city, I just started seeing the design doc, basically. Like, I could see exactly why the level was set up the way it was. I could see what I was supposed to do, and it somehow turned me off of the game in a really weird way, and I just kind of gave up because I didn't feel like I was immersed in the world anymore. And I don't know if I'm just a freak or if anyone else bounced off of Dishonored 2 as well.
that is so strange because I felt like Dishonored 2 took everything that the first game did and did it so much better and gave you even more ways to play the game due to the addition of a completely brand new character who played much differently than Corvo. Did anybody else here who played Dishonored 2 have the same experience as Matt did?
No, to be honest, I had the same thing happen with the first one. I'm probably about halfway through it. Although it's not that I saw the design. I think the first game has its own problem, which I heard the second one fixed a bit. It's that it's got like a good and a bad ending, or not necessarily good and bad, but there's like a chaos ending, like depending on how you play the game. And I was so obsessed with doing like a non-lethal stealth playthrough to get like a good ending that it just became so tedious because every time I got spotted or caught, I had to kind of jump back and reset to my last save and redo that. And I got to a point where I was just like, I can't. And I heard the second one doesn't punish you for kind of using powers and stuff the way the first one did. But Dishonored, yeah.
Ooh, hold on. Did I accidentally close the... Hold on. Are we still here? I wanted to make sure I didn't just like screw something up. I accidentally closed the podcast window. I was like, oh god, did I just take this offline? I had a fucking freak out there for a minute. So we're coming up on 10:30, and we should probably start drawing it to a close here. Some good conversation, some really good talk about industry sales and what they mean for the industry going forward. NPD talk is always interesting to me. And it's always good when we have Matt on. And Matt, again, we hope that you will be back with us next month to talk about the NPDs in July, because I think that is going to be a really interesting conversation. It'll be cool to see what Nintendo has done with the stock situation in regards to Splatoon 2.
Yeah, of course. Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me on again.
Oh, dude, it's always a pleasure having you on, man. And just a little bit of housekeeping. I want to remind everybody that next month, or not next month, Jesus. Well, I mean, next week is next month. But the first week of August, which is next week, August 3rd on Thursday, our really good friend who used to be with Games Radar, Susan Arndt, is going to be on the podcast again. We miss her, and I know she's really excited to come back on and talk with us. So she will be back on next week, which is my birthday also. So that's a really good birthday present for me. Again, thanks to Matt for joining us. Thanks to my boys for hanging out with me and rocking out and talking about some video games. Not much else to say. We hope you'll join us next week for Susan. And as always, guys, it's not always poetry and we don't always agree, but we always keep it real. So until next week, go play some games and please, please, please be good to each other, especially in these crazy times we live in. Take care of each other, everybody. Bye.